Hey there, and welcome to the podcast. If you're tuning in today, you're in for something really practical, and honestly, something that could completely shift the way you approach learning English. So let me ask you right now, have you ever been in a situation where you're trying to speak English, maybe in a conversation or even just thinking to yourself, and you know exactly what you want to say in your native language, but when you try to put it into English, your brain suddenly hits a wall? You pause. You hesitate. You start translating word by word in your head, and by the time you figured it out, the conversation has already moved on. Or maybe you've just given up entirely and said nothing at all. Sound familiar? If that's something you've experienced, trust me, you're not alone. In fact, this is one of the most common struggles I hear from English learners. People often spend years learning vocabulary, studying grammar rules, watching shows in English, and still, they feel stuck when it's time to actually think in English. And that's the key, thinking in English. It's this mysterious skill that nobody really teaches, but it's actually one of the most important things you can develop if you want to speak fluently, confidently, and naturally. So today, we're diving into exactly that. How to train your brain to think in English. And we're going to focus on doing it the easy way. That means no intense memorization techniques, no expensive courses, and no moving abroad required. What I'm going to share with you today is simple, doable, and you can start using it right after this episode. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or even advanced learner, this episode is designed to help you take that next step in your fluency journey. Now, just to be clear, this is not about perfection. You don't need to speak like a native, and you don't need to know every single word in the dictionary. Thinking in English is about creating mental habits. It's about rewiring the way you process everyday thoughts so that English becomes part of your internal voice. Once you shift that, speaking becomes easier, listening becomes smoother, and confidence goes way up. So in this episode, I'll walk you through the common reasons people struggle with this, the exact steps to train your brain to switch into English mode, and a few practical tools you can use daily, even if you only have 10 minutes a day. No fluff, no pressure, just a real, honest guide to making English feel more natural in your mind. All right, let's get started. Why people struggle to think in English, and what's really going on. So let's talk about the problem. Because before we can fix anything, we need to really understand why this is so hard for so many people. Why is it that even after years of studying English, taking classes, passing exams, you still find yourself thinking in your native language first and then trying to translate into English later? Why does your brain still default to your first language even when you want to think in English? Well, here's the truth. Most English learners were never actually taught how to think in English. They were taught to memorize vocabulary lists. They were taught grammar rules, sentence structures, verb tenses, irregular verbs, all the technical stuff. And don't get me wrong, that knowledge is important. But learning a language isn't just about information. It's about creating mental habits. And the traditional way most of us learn languages doesn't build that habit of thinking in English. It builds a habit of translating into English. And here's where things get tricky. Translation is slow. It's mentally exhausting. It makes you second-guess yourself all the time. And worst of all, it takes you out of the moment. You're no longer focused on what you're saying or what the other person is saying. You're busy doing this mental math in your head. And that's why conversations feel hard. That's why even simple words disappear from your mind under pressure. It's not because your English is bad, it's because your brain is working in the wrong mode. Another big problem is fear. And let's be real. Most learners are scared of making mistakes, afraid of sounding silly, afraid of being judged. So what do? We stay silent. Or we stick to simple, safe phrases. Or worse, we don't speak at all because we're waiting until our English is perfect. And all of that pressure keeps your brain stuck in your native language because your brain wants safety, familiarity, control. And switching to English? That feels risky, so your brain resists it, even if you want to change. And let me say this clearly, it's not your fault. Your brain is just doing what it's always done, protecting you, using the most familiar language you've known since birth. That's completely normal. But if you want to become fluent, if you want to feel natural in English, then you have to train your brain to feel safe and comfortable in English too. And that doesn't happen by force. It doesn't happen by memorizing more grammar. It happens by slowly, gently rewiring the way your brain processes daily thoughts, so that English becomes the new habit. One more thing I want to point out is this. Many learners believe that you can only start thinking in English once you're advanced. Like it's something that magically happens once you hit a certain level. But that's a myth. Thinking in English is not a reward for being fluent. It's actually one of the tools that helps you become fluent. You don't need to wait. You can start now, even with basic vocabulary, and build from there. You'll be amazed at how quickly your mind starts to shift. So to sum this up, the reason most people struggle to think in English isn't because they're not smart enough or not working hard enough. It's because they were taught wrong. They were trained to study English like a subject, not use it like a language. And as long as you're stuck in that pattern, thinking in English will always feel hard. But the good news is, you can break that pattern. And in the next part of this episode, I'm going to show you how to do exactly that, step by step. This is the part where things get practical. So stay with me. We're just getting to the good stuff. Understanding thinking in English, what it really means, and why it matters. All right, so now that we've talked about the problem, let's clear up something really important. What does it actually mean to think in English? Because this phrase gets thrown around a lot, right? Teachers say it. Textbooks say it. You've probably seen it in YouTube videos or on Instagram posts. Think in English to become fluent. But no one really explains what that means. So let's break it down. Thinking in English doesn't mean you're constantly speaking full, perfect English sentences inside your head like a narrator in a movie. You're not walking around like, "Today I am going to the store because I need to purchase some food items." That's not realistic. That's not how your brain even works in your native language. Thinking in English is actually much simpler. It's about replacing small, everyday thoughts, the kind you barely notice, with English instead of your native language. It could be something as basic as seeing your keys and thinking, "Where are my keys?" Or looking at the sky and thinking, "It might rain." These short, automatic thoughts are where the magic happens. Because once your brain starts switching those into English, without translating, you're on your way to real fluency. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at a cafe. You sit down and you notice your coffee is too hot. If your first instinct is to think it's too hot in English, not your native language, you're training your brain to use English as its default operating system. And that's what we're really trying to do here. We're not trying to speak like a textbook. We're just trying to live in English, even in our silent internal world. Another thing to understand is that thinking in English doesn't require a huge vocabulary. In fact, you can start with very simple words. Kids do this all the time. They learn to speak by thinking in whatever words they know, even if it's broken or messy. And guess what? It still works. You don't need perfect grammar to think in English. You need repetition, consistency, and low-pressure practice. The more you do it, the faster your brain adapts. Now, why does this even matter? Why put effort into changing how you think? Because the way you think shapes the way you speak. When your thoughts are already in English, speaking becomes faster, smoother, and more confident. You don't have to pause to translate. You don't second-guess every sentence. You become more natural, not because you memorized a script, but because your brain is operating in the language you want to use. And here's the best part. Thinking in English trains your brain in a way that studying can't. You're building neural connections. You're wiring English into your decision-making, your emotional reactions, your inner voice. That's powerful stuff. That's how language becomes second nature. Not through tests or drills, but through lived experience, even if that experience is happening silently inside your mind. So if you've been imagining thinking in English as this high-level skill that only fluent speakers can do, let that go. Thinking in English isn't the final step. It's actually the first real step toward fluency. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be daily. Start small. Start messy. But start. And in the next section, I'll walk you through exactly how to do that, step by step, with simple, realistic techniques that actually work in your real life. No theory, no fluff, just practical habits that will help you start thinking in English, starting today. Let's go there now. The easy way, step-by-step approach. How to actually train your brain to think in English simply and consistently. All right, let's get into the part you've been waiting for. How to actually train your brain to think in English. And I want to repeat this. It's not about being perfect, or fast, or even fluent at first. It's about building a new habit. One thought at a time, one day at a time. These 5 steps are simple. You don't need any special apps, no teacher, no massive study plan. Just a little consistency and a willingness to talk to yourself, even silently. Let's go through each one. Step 1. Surround yourself with English every single day. If you want your brain to default to English, it needs to be immersed in it. You don't need to move to London or New York. You can create a mini English world right where you are. Change your phone language. Follow English-speaking YouTubers or podcasts you enjoy. Label things in your house with sticky notes in English. Listen to music, audiobooks, or the news in English while you're cooking, walking, or commuting. This constant exposure sends a signal to your brain. Hey, this is important now. Pay attention. Even if you don't understand everything, that's okay. Your brain is listening, and it starts to pick up rhythms, vocabulary, and patterns in the background. Immersion doesn't mean you understand 100%. It means you're surrounded enough that English starts to feel normal. Step 2. Name and narrate your world. Start using English for the most basic things around you. This is where thinking in English begins. Look at your surroundings and name what you see. Chair, window, car, dog. Then take it a step further and narrate your actions. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm making coffee. It's raining today. These small, simple phrases build the foundation of English thinking. You don't need full sentences. Even just hungry now or too cold today is enough to start. The goal isn't perfect grammar. It's to flip the first thought that pops into your head into English, however messy it is. This builds mental speed. You'll be amazed at how many things you already know how to say, but just haven't practiced thinking. Step 3. Build internal dialogue habits. Now it gets a little deeper. Start creating conversations with yourself in English. It sounds weird, but it works. You're probably already doing this in your native language, thinking about what you're going to say, replaying a conversation, arguing with yourself in the shower. You can do the same thing in English. For example, imagine you're late. Instead of thinking, oh no, I'm late, in your native language, try, I'm late. Should I text them? What should I say? You're simulating real conversation, practicing language without pressure, and training your brain to speak faster and more naturally. You can also pretend you're explaining something simple to a friend in English, like how your day went or what your job is. These internal monologues make English your default setting. Step 4. Practice low pressure. Speaking. The key word here is low pressure. Don't wait for a real conversation to practice. Talk out loud to yourself. Describe what you're doing, ask yourself questions, or retell stories from your day. One great method is shadowing. Find a short clip of a native speaker, maybe from a movie or podcast, and repeat what they say in real time, like a shadow. You're not trying to understand every word, just mimicking the rhythm and pronunciation. This helps your brain get used to thinking and responding in English quickly. Another trick? Set a 2-minute timer and try to speak continuously about anything in English. Don't worry about mistakes. Just keep going. This builds fluency and confidence. Step 5. Connect emotions to English words. This step is powerful and often overlooked. Try to experience emotions in English. When you're angry, say to yourself, I'm really annoyed. When you're excited, say, I can't wait. When you're tired, say, I need a break. This links real feelings to English language, and that's when thinking becomes automatic. If you start feeling in English, you stop translating. Why? Because emotions don't wait for grammar. They just are. So when you can express your joy, stress, boredom, or love in English, it becomes your natural voice, not a language you're trying to use. Final thought on these steps. You don't need to master all 5 steps in one day. Just choose one to start with this week. Even 5 minutes a day is enough to create progress. Thinking in English isn't about studying harder. It's about using the English you already know, more often and more naturally, starting inside your own head. And if you keep showing up for that small daily practice, your brain will start to respond. Coming up next, I'll share some tools and resources that can make this whole process easier. Apps, daily routines, and clever tricks to make English thinking part of ye. Tools and resources. Simple tools, apps, and habits to make thinking in English easier. All right, now that you've got the step-by-step approach, let's make it even easier by talking about the tools and resources that can help support your journey. Because here's the thing. Yes, you can train your brain to think in English without anything fancy. But using a few simple tools can speed things up, keep you motivated, and help you stay consistent, especially on those days when your brain says, not today. Let's start with the daily activities, the habits you can build into your life without adding any extra time to your schedule. 1. English journaling. This is one of the most powerful tools, and all you need is a notebook or your phone. Every day, just write something in English. It could be how you're feeling, what you did that day, what your plans are tomorrow. Anything. The goal is not grammar. The goal is fluency of thought. You can even use voice notes if you prefer speaking. Open your recorder app and talk for 1 to 2 minutes in English. Don't edit yourself. Just speak. This kind of free expression trains your brain to organize your thoughts in English, and that's a huge step toward thinking fluently. 2. Shadowing. Imitation technique. I mentioned this earlier, but let's go deeper. Find a short video clip, maybe a scene from a movie, an interview, or a podcast episode. Play 5 to 10 seconds, then pause and repeat exactly what you hear. Copy the speaker's rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation as closely as possible. You're not just training your mouth, you're training your mind to react in English. Over time, this helps you internalize grammar, expressions, and pronunciation without even realizing it. Apps like Youglish or Elsa Speak can help you find clips and practice pronunciation. 3. Flash thoughts. This is a cool little trick. Set reminders on your phone that pop up with random English thoughts throughout the day. For example, what are you doing right now? How do you feel today? Describe the weather in 5 words. These mini questions encourage your brain to stop and think in English for a few seconds. Over time, it becomes automatic. You can also use apps like Anki or Quizlet to create flashcards, but instead of translating, create cards that force you to describe something directly in English. 4th, English-only time blocks. Pick a time in your day, just 10 or 15 minutes, where you do everything in English. That means your thoughts, your phone, your music, your conversations with yourself, all English. Like a mini immersion bubble. It's short, so it doesn't feel overwhelming, but even those small chunks rewire your brain. Over time, you can increase the time block or do it multiple times a day. Pro tip: pair it with something you already do, like your walk to work or brushing your teeth. That makes it stick as a habit. 5. The silent conversation. Game. This one's fun, and you can do it anytime, anywhere. Imagine you're having a conversation with someone, in your head, but only use English. You can talk to a celebrity, a friend, even a version of yourself. Ask and answer questions, react, express emotion. If you get stuck, no problem. Use gestures or look up the word later. The goal is to keep the English conversation going, even silently. It's like mental role-playing, and it's surprisingly effective for building fluency. Bonus tools. Talk to ChatGPT, yes, me. Practice having daily conversations in English. You can even ask for corrections or explanations. Use it like a conversation coach. Google Assistant/Siri. Speak commands in English. It sounds silly, but saying, "Set an alarm for 7 a.m." helps build comfort with spoken English. TV with subtitles. Watch English shows with English subtitles. Read and hear the language at the same time. Try turning off subtitles slowly as you get more confident. The key here is this: don't overload yourself. Pick 1 or 2 tools that feel fun or easy for you. Start there. The most powerful tool isn't an app or a method. It's consistency. 5 minutes a day is better than 1 hour once a week. You're not trying to force fluency. You're inviting English into your life, into your mind, into your everyday habits. And the more you do that, the more your brain will respond. In the next section, I'll give you a quick motivational boost. Because let's be honest, this process can feel slow sometimes. But what you're doing is working, and I'll explain why. Let's keep going. Motivational boost. Why this journey is worth it, and why it works faster than you think. Let's take a moment to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. You might be thinking, okay, all of this sounds great, but will it really work for me? Or maybe you've tried before and after a few days you felt like nothing changed. I get it. Language learning can feel slow. It can feel like you're putting in effort but not seeing results fast enough. But let me remind you of something really important. You've already come a long way. The fact that you're listening to this podcast in English means Your brain is already working with the language. You understand way more than you give yourself credit for. And every small step you take from here builds on that foundation. Thinking in English might seem like a big shift, but the real secret? It's just a series of tiny shifts. Tiny moments where you choose English instead of your native language. One small phrase, one short internal sentence, one thought at a time. And here's the exciting part. Once your brain starts adapting, it adapts quickly. You'll go from struggling to name things around you in English to narrating your day without even realizing it. You'll find yourself reacting to situations, not in translation, but directly in English. That's when you know your brain is switching modes. And it will happen if you stay consistent. And consistency doesn't mean perfection. You don't have to get it right every time. You don't have to be fluent next month. You just have to keep going, even when it feels awkward, even when you forget. Just come back to it. 5 minutes. One sentence. One habit. It's also okay to have bad days. You're human. You might feel tired, stuck, or frustrated sometimes, but don't let that stop you. Progress in language learning is never a straight line. Some days you feel amazing. Some days you feel like you're going backward. But if you zoom out and look at the big picture, you'll see the growth. And you're not doing this alone. There are millions of learners out there just like you, building confidence, one thought at a time. And I'm right here with you, cheering you on. So, if today all you do is name 3 things in English, that counts. If you catch yourself thinking one little phrase in English without translating, that's a win. If you shadowed one sentence from a podcast, you're moving forward. Small wins add up. That's how fluency happens. So take a deep breath, smile, and remind yourself. You're not just learning English, you're becoming someone who lives and thinks in English. And that's powerful. Let's wrap it up with a quick summary and a small challenge to get you started today. All right, let's bring everything together. Today, we've talked about something that can truly change the way you experience English, not just how you study it, but how you live it. We started by looking at why thinking in English feels so hard, even for people who have studied for years. We broke down the real problem. How most learners are taught to translate, not to think in the language. Then we got clear on what thinking in English actually means. It's not about full perfect sentences. It's about simple, natural thoughts happening directly in English without that slow mental translation. After that, I gave you a 5-step method to start training your brain to think in English. Steps like naming your world, creating inner dialogue, using shadowing, practicing low-pressure speaking, and connecting emotions to English. All of these are simple, practical, and powerful. We also looked at tools and routines to help you stay consistent. Journaling, flash reminders, English-only time blocks, and fun little mental games that make English part of your everyday life. And hopefully, you're leaving this episode not just with ideas, but with motivation. Because the truth is, your brain can adapt. Your English can feel natural. And this process works faster than you think, if you stick with it. So here's your call to action. Pick just one step from today's episode, and do it today. Maybe you label a few things in your room in English. Maybe you describe what you're doing out loud as you make coffee. Maybe you talk to yourself in the mirror for 60 seconds. That's it. That's how it starts. And if you want, send me a message or comment with what you did. I'd love to hear it. You can even send in questions, and I might include them in a future episode. You've got this. You're capable. And you're already on your way to thinking and living in English. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. If you found this episode helpful, feel free to share it with a friend who's learning English too. And don't forget to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Until next time, keep thinking in English.